Joining us this afternoon or this morning is Hawthorn legend, triple premiership player, Josh Gibson. Now, Josh, thanks for spending a bit of time with us. Really appreciate it, mate.
No, mate, got plenty of time on my hands at the moment with everything that's happening in the ISO world. So more than happy to jump online and talk some footy, I guess. Haven't done it for a while.
Yeah, fantastic. So also joining us is Lawson Humphries. Now, Lawson's one of our boarders. He's played the first 18 the last couple of years, and he's in Wickham up in Karratha country. So, Lawson, thanks for joining us. I'm going to throw straight to you, mate, and get cracking with a couple of questions for Josh.
Too easy. Thanks for coming on, Josh. So you attended Trinity Grammar in Melbourne. Can you tell us what kind of sports you played growing up as a kid?
Yeah, so, well, I guess going back, my mum's from New South Wales and my dad's from Barbados. So they moved to Melbourne before I was born, and obviously born and raised in Melbourne. So footy wasn't my first sport. Actually started off playing squash, believe it or not. So I used to play a lot of squash. I was pretty good at it, not pumping up my own tyres too much, but I was pretty good. And then one day I came home and Mum said, "You've got to start wearing those goggles to protect your eyes." And I thought, nah, they look pretty shit house. So I quit. I quit that. I quit. And about 12 years old, I got into footy, which Auskick was back then was called Vic Kick because it was just in Victoria. So came home from school, said I wanted to start getting into Vic Kick, and they didn't even know what AFL was. So yeah, but that was my intro to footy. Other sports I played as a kid, I used to play ice hockey, squash, do a lot of horse riding. I ride horses now, so I rode heaps as a kid. And yeah, I love snowboarding. So snowboarding and skiing were big for me when I was young. And cricket. Sorry, so Dad's from the West Indies, mate. I had to play cricket.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a junior sportsman, was there one match that you remember above others? And why do you think you still remember it?
Yeah, there's probably one junior match. I think it was must have been under 14s. It was our grand final. And, back then there wasn't a video cameras and on your phones and whatnot. So I remember they filmed the grand final this day, the old VH recorders. And it was very rare, mate, that I marked the ball, as you saw during my AFL career. I like to spoil it. So I actually take a hanger in that game, and this guy commentating, it's pretty funny. He's like, "Oh, Gibson got up there and rode his opponent like a train." And like, seriously, I wasn't even that far off the ground. But that's the one game I remember, mate. We won the premiership, and I took a semi hanger, which never happened again in my career.
Yeah. So heading to North, what were your memories of turning up to training on your first day? Some legends of North Melbourne would still have been on the list, so like the likes of Simpson, Archer, Rocker, McKernan. What impact did some of these senior players have on you?
Yeah, good question. So my path into North Melbourne was after I played under 18s at Oakley. They had a feeder program into Port Melbourne in the VFL, and they were aligned with North Melbourne. So I was playing with North Melbourne guys each weekend, and then after a couple of years, they rookie listed me. And remember walking into that club, it was pretty special. I think the first day I went out for lunch, Glenn Archer took me out for lunch. We didn't get lunches made for us back then, mate. North Melbourne didn't have much money, so yeah. I remember just sitting in the car driving to lunch with Arch. So scared, I was shitting myself, but it was a ripper. And I look back now, the guys that I got to learn my craft off, from a defensive aspect, there was Lee Colbert, there was Glenn Archer. When I was practicing on forwards, I got to play on Sav Rocker, Nathan Thompson, midfield, Adam Simpson, Shannon Grant, I was Boomer Harvey. So very lucky to master my craft amongst those guys. And, I was thinking about it just yesterday, actually. We've still got like a big WhatsApp group of all the North Melbourne guys, and we're always texting one another. So, it was a great environment to step into for AFL, because there were so many guys in the playing group during that time that had so much success in the 90s and knew about winning cultures and premierships and what it takes to get to the top.
Yeah. So after playing 65 games for North, you were traded to Hawthorn. What inspired you to get out of your comfort zone and take the challenge of playing at another club?
Yeah, good question. So my last year at North, they sacked Dean Laidley, who I had a pretty good relationship with. And look, to be honest, I was probably $20,000 away from signing. I wanted 220, and they offered me 200,000, and I said no. And then they sacked the coach, and at that stage they were playing me as a tagger in the midfield, and I thought like I was probably better as a defender. And as the year went on, Clarko and that reached out, and I don't know if you remember, but Trent Crowe had a pretty amazing 2008 grand final, but he smashed his ankle and then didn't play for the whole of 2009. So they didn't make the finals that year, and that was when Clarko reached out. And I'd had some pretty good battles with Buddy, especially in final series before. And it was the way Clarko presented it to me. He said, "Mate, we see you as a defender. Look, we think that you've got a great ability to play on taller opponents. We'd love to have you in the system." It was just the way that he explained it to me with Jason Dunstall, and I met with Sam Mitchell as well, and I was really eager to take the jump across. It was a big thing at that stage because players didn't move clubs as much, and it was very tough. North Melbourne was threatening not to let me go, and I had to threaten them that I would walk into the preseason draft and they'd get nothing for me. And I think Freo and Port Adelaide had the first 2 picks in the preseason draft. So, it was there was a lot of bluffing. But we finally got there and got traded to Hawthorn, and it's pretty special because I grew up as barracking for Hawthorn as a kid. I remember that walking into the first day of training at Hawthorn, the club had given up a lot. They traded their first round pick for Sean Burgoyne, second round pick for me. And you sort of walk in there, and it was like your first day when you're at high school. You might have been one of the cool kids in grade 6 at your primary school, but now you're at a high school and you don't know where to stand, don't know who to hang out with. So it was interesting. And then when you walk out on the oval and you've got Luke Hodge, Sam Mitchell, Roughhead, Franklin, you're just like, shit, I better deliver. But again, after settling in, it was such a special place. And, I always say you want to master your craft against the best. Well, every day I got to go out there and play on Buddy and Ruffy. The only bad thing was I used to tell Bud all my secrets about how I used to beat him. I always used to say, mate, I don't like to poke the bear. So I'd always say, oh, you're a stiff Bud. You should have got a free kick there, blah, blah, blah. And we'd just talk on the field to try and get his mind off it. Yeah. And Bud went and traded to Sydney. So then when I went to play on him, I tried to use all those things again. They didn't work, and he went out and kicked 5 on me. So got to be very careful who you tell your secrets to, mate. 'Cause you might come up again. They might be a teammate at one stage, but they could be an enemy in a few years' time.
Yeah. So your time at Hawthorn was beyond your wildest dreams. You finished 3 premierships, 2 best and fairest, and an All-Australian selection. But before we talk about some of your premierships and personal achievements, what were your first impressions of the club, LSA Clarkson, and some of the senior players, as you've already said?
Yeah, look, the thing that blew me away was Hawthorn's professionalism. North Melbourne was a great club, but their success probably was in the 90s, and that's when footy clubs were more about mates. And, they used to tell stories that North Melbourne started Friday night footy, then they get together for Saturday mornings, cook up bacon and eggs, have beers on a Saturday. It was very different culture. So a lot of the staff at North Melbourne are ex-players and that type of thing. And walking into Hawthorn, I was just blown away by the professionalism. You had Jeff Kennett at the top, who was setting the agenda. And, if Hawthorn needed an accountant, they went and got the best accountant. They didn't care if he barracked for Collingwood growing up. So it was like this really professionally run organisation, and that was at the top and streamed all the way down. So that was the biggest thing walking in the door was, wow, this place is so professional. And obviously the club had a little bit more money. So the resources and coaching and education they could put into you and look at ways that they would look at, developing you as a human, but also as a footballer, that were the things that probably blew me away.
Yeah. So
did I answer all of that question, or did I miss some of it?
No, that's fine. Okay. Just about LSA Clarkson.
Yeah, Clarko. So interesting. We lived in the same suburb, and he came around the first day. It was official and gave me a shirt. We had a photo, and as you know, everyone talks about Hawthorn's defence. They call it Clarko's cluster or whatever, where we protect areas. And so a lot in my first preseason, it was about learning that and the way that we zone and slide around and this and that. So we'd always do these drills across the ground. And every now and then, because I lived in the same suburb as him, like training would start at 7 a.m., get there at 6:20 or whatever. And it'd be like 11:30 at night. And I get this text message, "Hey, mate, it's Clarko." I'm like, "What the fuck do you want?" And he'd be like, "I've just got some vision I want to show you. Do you mind just popping over for a bit?" And he'd get me over at like 11:30 at night on his laptop showing me how I could have been better in this defensive transition and what. So he just lives and breathes football, and he just wants to make you the best you can be. And look, him and I have an amazing relationship, and no doubt I wouldn't have been the footballer I am without him. He's just he's the type of guy I just wanted to go to war for him every week, and just it was like a soldier who's just patriotic for his country. Like I just wanted to go out there as much as I wanted to do it for my teammates. You just knew that you had this coach that would just back you with everything, and just gave you the confidence to just try and go to the next level.
Yeah, it's good. So during your career, do you remember one individual matchup that you really looked forward to the challenge? Like you knew you'd be playing on each other and it just motivated you to take your game to the next level?
Yeah, like early on when I was at North, it was Bud. The first time was 2007 final series. I think Bud had just kicked 7, I think, against Adelaide to get them across the line in that game at Etihad or Marvel, whatever it was back then. And then so we were playing Hawthorn on this Saturday night. And, I used to talk it up. I'd walk around the club, tell the boys who wants tickets to the Buddy Gibbo show. But that was my way of getting myself ready for the game. And then, he still kicked, I think, 2 or 3 goals that night. But that was the first time I really beat him. And then I used to, look forward to those matchups. I loved playing on the best. During my career, I got to play on Jonathan Brown, Favola, Barry Hall. So it was never ending. And especially back then, it was no zoning. So it was just like you and Favola standing inside the 50, So, but matchups I loved playing. I really loved playing on Goodsey.
Goodsey.
So I got my first 3 Brownlow votes against Goodsey. So I felt like that was a matchup I looked forward to. That was one I loved. Other forwards that some forwards you just felt like you had their measure, like they were my bunny. I won't mention any names, but there's a couple in there that you used to like lining up on.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Couple of them are still playing the AFL, so I won't say anything.
I'll chip in with a few here now, Josh. I think it takes a great team to win 1 premiership. You guys won 3 in a row. If you could narrow it down to one key ingredient, what do you think that is? Just the longevity of success that you had there.
Yeah, look, when people ask me this question, I like to talk about the fact that everyone sort of thinks we just won 3 premierships and was like, oh, it's so easy. But there was a lot of heartache that went into it and a lot of education and learning along the way. From 2010, we bowed out first final. 2011, we were not smashing, but we're ahead of Collingwood in that prelim. And, I remember thinking, shit, I'm going to play in a grand final next week. And then Luke Ball, who's never kicked 40 metres in his life, kicks one from 45 and they win the game. So there's that heartache. Then 2012, we make a grand final, minor premiers, won every stat on grand final day except the scoreboard. And, especially for a bloke like me that came in and they dangle the premiership carrot in front of you, you're like, are the boys going to be able to go to the well again and dig deep, especially because they've already won in 08. But the thing that was just so amazing about this group was the ability to fight for one another and just education and knowing our game plan. And, we had a really strong performance pyramid, which, you're going to say, what's a performance pyramid? Every club has their slogan. And, you see them, they might be running down the tunnel, they touch the wall and it's like, we're going to fight to the death or whatever it is. But the biggest thing was our performance pyramid. We used to have one, which was written by the coaches. And one day it took a young guy on preseason camp to go, what does this actually mean? do we stand for it? And from that day forward, we changed it, and it was one written by the players. And I just feel like that was our strongest asset, that it was so clear to relate back to how you needed to perform in your area against our performance pyramid. And it was something that the players wrote, and it had complete buy-in from us. So, we used to call it was our 23rd man on the field our 19th man on the field because we felt like if we adhered to this and did these little 1%ers that we had in our performance pyramid, it was like having an extra man on the field. So I think when times get tough, because, during those 3 premierships, we had heaps of adversity. Clarko, he had that Guillain-Barré syndrome, wasn't coaching. Bretton Ratton lost his son. So there were plenty of setbacks, big injuries to guys, but we always just relied on that pyramid, and it held us in good stead.
Yeah. Now, I know you weren't there for the Hawthorn's first premiership back in 2008, but there was a famous passage of play where Cyril, I think, made 3 or 4 tackles.
3 tackles in a row. Yep.
In your 3 grand finals, do you have your own little personal moment of a player that was something like that you just were somewhere and you were looking at it and you just thought, wow, that is beyond special?
It's not the there's the Fremantle grand final. Strats makes a chase down in the last quarter when they're running into goal and just puts enough pressure. I can't remember who it was. Puts enough pressure on him to kick a point when they were coming at us because that was a closer game. But the big one that I always remember is Hodgie in the prelim final against Port Adelaide, where we were home and hosed at 3/4 time, and they just started coming home. And Hodgie put on those big tackles at about, half back for us, got that holding the ball, held it up at the end of the game, siren went, and we won. That was the play. If that didn't happen, the 3-peat doesn't exist, and who knows? So that's the one play for me, because as bad as it sounds, the 14 and 15 grand final are people said they hated watching them because they're a bit one-sided, but they still had the big plays, but the real tight game, like the 13 and that prelim, they're the ones that I remember.
Yeah. Now, the Peter Crimmins medal for best and fairest, you won 2 in premiership years. I know and the premierships are probably worth far more, but in terms of individual accolades, to be recognised by your club in premiership years, that must come second in your career. To get, particularly amongst the caliber of players in those groups, to have that recognition not once but twice. Yeah,
look, I remember at the time someone said to me, there's 3 players at Hawthorn, Lee Matthews, Dunstall, and yourself who have done it, and you don't think much about it, because as you said, it's all about winning premierships. But 3 years retired now, and you get to look back on your career, and you can really enjoy those individual accolades more when you've had the team success one. So, look, it's pretty special achievement. I'm not going to lie, but as a defender, so much of what you do comes down to pressure in the midfield. The other 5 defenders looking after each other. That's the way we played, and so had plenty of help. But very, very honoured that. I think I always prided myself on wanting to deliver in big games. So the fact that I could have 2 good seasons in years which were pretty pivotal for the club, that's probably what sits best with me.
Do you think a defender will ever win the Brownlow?
No way, mate. It's just unless he's listed as a defender and he plays half-back midfielder, I just think it's too hard, mate. It's all about goals. It's all about goals and touches, mate. They don't care about the hard work we do.
Yeah. Lawson, you got a couple more?
Yeah. So for most of your career, you played as a key defender, and as a reward for your work as a defender, you were selected in the 2015 All-Australian team in the back pocket. But after 225 games and 5 goals, did you ever want to play up forward more?
Mate, it's funny. My whole career as a kid, I played as a forward. So under 18s, TAC, I was 4th in the league for goal kicking. I think that year it went Aaron Edwards, Hamish McIntosh, Brad Fisher, who went to Carlton, and then me. So it wasn't until I joined in Port Melbourne in the VFL that a coach turned me into a defender, mate. So it's funny because I love playing defence. I've got no interest in going forward. You know, it was my absolute highlight at training, and blokes didn't like it because I used to train pretty hard. And I'd love nothing more than a midfielder trying to hit up a forward to make a drill look pretty and just punching it and, excuse my language, fucking the whole drill up. You know, like that was my thing at training, and people didn't like it, but I always trained at 100%. You know, Clark would always tell me to calm down, but it was just the way I performed. And yeah, I got a sick fetish in my head, mate, for stuffing up drills at training and punching forwards' hands.
As a key defender, you would have played on many of the biggest forwards in the game. Being a humble 189 centimetres, what did you do to help yourself defend these bigger bodies that you would have faced throughout your career?
Well, I found out once I retired, I'm 186, so I always lied about my height. I measured myself when I had my afro and never went back. And I said 95 kilos. I played at about 90. So my trick was to be very good mates with all the umpires. So if anything was 50-50, they always went my way. No, look, I don't know, I just had a good ability to read the flight of the ball. So I always felt like I was able to get in position 1 or 2 steps faster than my forward. And the big thing, if you were to go back and watch a lot of my stuff, it's body spoiling. Like, too many people look for just you know, that beautiful, clear contact with the ball, but a lot of it is just me smashing my chest into their back with my hand up right at that time. So it's about getting the timing, and you know, it's not tunneling, it's not taking their legs out, but just getting that body contact and body spoiling right at that moment. So that was my thing, mate. And obviously, you know, the way that we played zone defense, like I think a lot of people are like, oh, he doesn't play with a man, but we would like to. We always played in front of our opponents, so we could help the line in front.
Yeah.
So we could always cascade up the field, because we thought, you know, for the deepest defender, there's no point being you're 2 kicks away from the play. Why do you need to be behind your forward? Always play in front. So if there's a grubber kick or whatever, you can be the first one onto it. So I used to love that style of play because it allowed me to then read the play and you know, go and spoil contests in front. So yeah, I just think my ability to body spoil and probably my timing and you know, pick up play was probably what helped me because I was undersized.
Yeah. Who do you enjoy watching now as a defender? You probably, you know, watch a fair few defenders around. Who do you think's some of the best in the game now?
He's just finished, but obviously I loved Rancy. We had you know, he was a guy we would constantly call one another, talk about ways to beat forwards. Some young ones coming on. It's hard now because it's not so much about the defensive work anymore, mate. It's more about, you know, like obviously I love watching Sicily play, but he's a different breed of defender. I still like watching Phil Davis, you know, because a lot of the work he does goes, you know, it's not noticed. The other guy who's really killing it right now for me is Dylan Grimes. If you actually watch his 1v1 work, his positioning and body positioning spot on. So yeah, Dylan Grimes. If I was a key defender, young kid, I'd be watching the way Dylan Grimes plays the game right now.
Yeah, no worries. Now, 2 questions left, mate. We talk a fair bit at Hale about what it takes to be a team player. You would have been around, you know, I mean, a lot that you consider, you know, I mean, great team players. Was there someone that took it to that next level, was just so unselfish? Mightn't have been the best player you played with, but just in terms of putting the team above themselves?
No. You know, Glenn Archer's the first one without a doubt. You know, he was in our leadership group, but he wasn't about barking orders. It was just lead by example. And I guess you look at the guys that sort of tried to copy him. Like, you know, my thing was like him. I still spoke and, you know, I was part of our leadership group, but I loved it by my actions. Michael Frito was another one that followed in Archer's footsteps. So he was the one for me coming in where I was like, you know, don't worry about talking the talk, just walk the walk. So he was the one guy in my career that was, you know, just was aggressive in his actions and let them do the talking.
No, fantastic. Now, last question. It's a weird one. You would not have thought you probably never answered this question amongst the tens of thousands of questions you've been asked. But here at Hale, we got pie day on Tuesdays where all the boarders and all the staff get meat pies. And Lawson's a boarder. And some of the things the boarders do with meat pies, they take the roof off, They put
Yeah.
like the whole bottle of sauce. They use
Sauce in,
spoons.
eat it out, then use the thing as like a cup after. Yep. Okay. Got it. Yep.
Yeah. How does Josh Gibson eat a meat pie?
Well, it evolves. When I was younger, I was definitely pop the lid, take it off, sauce in there, mix it round, use a fork, eat it all out, and then eat the crust, and then put sauce on the top and eat that as a piece as well. Then it depends if it was, I know we shouldn't really be talking about this, boys, but if maybe I'd had a night out on the beers and it was a dirty 7-Eleven pie at 2:00 in the morning and it's lukewarm, it's just sauce all over, smash it down fast because you know it's not going to burn you because it hasn't been cooked well.
Yeah.
But the 30, how old am I? 30, I'm 36. 36-year-old mature Josh now might eat a pie with a knife and fork. No, I'm joking, mate. It's just straight in the bag, still plenty of sauce on, in she goes.
Awesome. Now, Josh, thanks so much. Like, I think the kids, in dotted across our state will learn so much from your career and some of your insights into how you've achieved so much. So I really appreciate your time. Please stay safe and well over there in Sydney, and look forward to, you're doing some personal fitness business up and running. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got some gyms around Australia, so we've got about 5 or 6 of them. Not in WA yet, but we will get over there at some stage. So, mate, I like to stay fit, stay active. So it's good. Keeps my mind busy. Try and train twice a day, and that's it. But no, thanks for the call. You've got my number. So if you ever need to chat again, boys, hopefully ISO doesn't go for too long. But if you ever need to reach out again, feel free. More than happy to help whenever.
Thanks, Josh. That's very generous, and you stay well.
See you guys.
Thanks.
See ya.